I'm Kat, and this video is an update on my hair. I've gotten a ton of requests to do a video like this one because it's been so long since I've done any sort of update on how I henna my hair, how I wash it, and this video is going to cover all of that information. So it is about 3 years and 11 months since I started doing my hair with henna. And a little bit of a backstory on my hair. In 2011, I was diagnosed with a pheochromocytoma, and even though I didn't have to do chemo or radiation, when I got really sick from my tumor and right before they took it out, or actually found it, my hair started falling out in large clumps and it really thinned out, it got really damaged. And I had been sick for a very long time, so the entire length of my hair was really damaged from my body not absorbing nutrients properly and just being so depleted by my illness. So a few months after I had my tumor surgery, my agency, I'm an actor, and my agency asked me to go back to red. They had seen an old photo of me, I think I was about 19 or 20, and they really liked that look on me. So I went to a salon and I had it done through a salon a few times, and it was just so incredibly expensive. And even with my hair being really damaged and weak and depleted, it still grew really fast. So I was going back to the salon about every 2 or 3 weeks to touch up about an inch of roots. It was pretty extreme. So I decided to try out henna, and I realized I didn't want to use a henna hair dye because I did have previous hair color still in the length of my hair. I just didn't want to risk melting my hair because a lot of henna hair dyes still have salt and stuff like that in them, and that can react with your other chemical hair dye in your hair and melt your hair off and do horrible things. So I researched how to dye my hair with pure henna, and I initially just used pure henna, and then I started using about 50% henna and 50% cassia. Cassia is another plant like henna that is ground up and made into a powder, used as a dye and other things, and it gives it a little bit of a golden tone. So instead of the bright red that you get from just henna, if you add cassia to it, you get more of a copper tone, which is what I wanted for my hair. And a lot of people will use vinegar or lemon as the acid to release the dye in their henna and cassia, and I actually just use chamomile tea because it's much more gentle on my hair and it's just as acidic as I need it to be, and I really don't have any issues. So as you can tell, my hair has gotten a lot darker from the time that I started hennaing my hair. I had been gradually trying to get back to my natural color. I had to dye my hair to match a hair piece that I had to wear for a uniform for a while. It's a long story. So I had to go lighter for a long time, and the lift in my hair was really hard to get away from. And what I loved about henna is that there was no, I guess, line of demarcation, I think they call it, where you can see where it's growing out in your hairline, because the henna deposits. It doesn't lift the cuticle of the hair like conventional hair dye does. It just deposits. So it's going to be maybe like 1 to 2 shades darker than your natural hair shade or level, which would be the brightness of your hair. So when I started henna, I was swimming regularly in a chlorinated pool in the sun. We lived in a very sunny area, so not only was my hair really damaged and bleaching out very easily in the sun, I had the chlorine that was bleaching it more, and the length of my hair had a lot more lightness to it because I had been chemically dyeing it previously. But if I were to grow my hair out to its natural color, it would be like a darkish ashy blonde. Now in the summertime, if I'm spending a lot of time outside, and I don't usually because I'm pale and I like being pale and I want to stay pale, if I'm out in the sun a ton, yes, my hair will actually bleach out to the lightness that it used to be. I usually touch up my roots depending on my shooting schedule. If I have 2 weeks of roots growing out and it barely shows, but I'm working on a project that I think is really important, then I will touch up my roots maybe 2 nights before my shoot. But if I'm just working like background on something, I'll let it go for about a month and then I'll touch up my roots. I did a previous video where I show you how to do your roots on your own, which is actually how I did it for a long time. But then I switched over to a slightly different method of doing my roots, which I'll show you in my video. And if you're just starting out, I'd recommend checking out that video on how to touch up your roots first. I don't actually touch up the length of my hair, maybe much more than like every 6 months. And even then I won't do full henna over my entire hair. I'll do my roots in my actual like strong henna mixture that I usually do, and then just any old conditioner to whatever I have left over from that, and then I'll put that on the length of my hair. So if it's gotten really sun bleached or it's just looking really dry and like needs a refresher, I'll put that conditioner and then henna cassia mixture over the length of my hair while my roots are also being dyed. Usually I'll just mix enough henna to do my roots, and if I have any left over, I'll put some on my eyebrows with a spoolie or a Q-tip, and fortunately my skin really doesn't die from the henna very often. Occasionally I'll get a little bit of an orange tinge along my hairline, but it doesn't last for more than a day. As soon as I wash my skin, it comes right off. As you can see, my hair is fairly long, and I'll show you the ends of it. I do have a few split ends because it's been about a month since my last haircut, so I do have some split ends. And I do heat style it usually twice a week. I try to only heat style it about twice a week just to preserve it a little bit more. But if a professional hairstylist is doing my hair on set, a lot of times they don't use heat protectant on your hair. Sometimes you'll do a scene, you'll be all hairsprayed up, and then they have to switch to a different scene and they'll do a different hairstyle, and they'll just rip a brush through all that hairspray, and they don't care. They don't care. They're gonna damage your hair, they're gonna do whatever they have to do to make it look good in the moment and not really care about the long-term health of your hair. So that's just something you've kind of gotta deal with in this industry. When you're more important on set, they treat you better. But most of the time they just don't care. Now, using the henna has made my hair a little bit less curly than it used to be. It's always been curly. I had like stick straight hair when I was little, and then when I was about 6 or 7 it started getting really curly. And now it's like curly frizzy, like Carrot Top Nightmare meets Hagrid meets Hermione, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. So I'll usually wash my hair once, maybe twice a week, and as soon as I get out of the shower, I'll either let it dry overnight and then I'll do like a blowout to get the roots up, or I'll do a blowout right when I get out of the shower. So I'm only blow drying it usually once a week, and then I'll use my curling iron a couple times a week just to touch it up, because if it gets moist, it gets frizzy. And you can see it's a little bit frizzy right here. So this is like a full day of running around LA and being sweaty, and it just frizzes up. Last year was extremely stressful. I started to have like kidney and liver problems from an incredibly high stress level. Planning my wedding was like the single worst experience of my entire life. And just last year was not a good year for me. A lot of horrible things happened, and so I lost a lot of hair. It really thinned out for about 6 months there. And now, now that we're a year away from that trauma of just nonsense, I do have a lot of regrowth. So you can see here in my temple, there are a lot of short hairs that had previously fallen out just from the stress. I usually just smooth them into my hair and it's not an issue. And I'll show you how long my hair is. So there's the length of my hair. Pretty good. And it's not quite as full as I would like it to be. And part of that is, you know, it's just regrowing, but it was a much lighter red when I started out, and I'm glad that it darkened up. But overall, it's looking a lot better than it used to, especially right after my whole tumor surgery and all that kind of stuff. And last year was just like a little bit of a hiccup, and my hair is definitely starting to get much thicker again. Now, when I first started doing henna, I was still using conventional shampoos and conditioners, and so I have not shampooed my hair in at least 3 years, and I'm still doing the no-poo method. Now, a lot of people will say that you're gonna damage your hair long term if you do it, and I have not found that to be the case. Then again, I'm also not using massive amounts of baking soda or massive amounts of apple cider vinegar. And I really only wash my hair about once a week because that's all it needs. honestly, it doesn't get that dirty unless there's a ton of product in it, and because it's not regenerating a whole bunch of sebum that's been stripped away by shampoo, then my hair doesn't really get that greasy. And it doesn't smell like anything. It just smells like me and my clean hair because there's nothing left on it, there's no residue, and it doesn't get a lot of buildup of product because once I stopped using conventional shampoo and conditioner, there wasn't a bunch of silicone and all that other chemical crap in my hair for other stuff to stick to. So I honestly could really just rinse with water most of the time and get product out. There are some days when I might have a ton of hairspray, but my scalp isn't feeling dirty at all, and I'll just rinse out the hairspray and I'm good to go. My hair is perfectly clean. My henna used to take quite a while to rinse out of my hair. Since I went shampoo free, it doesn't have all that silicone and commercial shampoo and conditioner gunk built up in the hair, and so rinsing out the henna is no big deal. I used to have to put a ton of conditioner in my hair to actually dislodge the henna and get it out, and then I would have to wash again the next day and the day after that to get everything and that gritty feeling off of my hair, and now I don't have that. Sometimes I can get it out just with the shower head, like on the little hard sprayer setting, but I just find it's more relaxing to lay back in the tub, and then the water that's in the bottom of the tub is like soaking the back of my head. I'll rub my scalp with my fingertips, not with my fingernails because I don't like scratching my scalp, and that's usually enough to get it off of my scalp. So even though I've rinsed everything out completely, I'll still put a t-shirt over my pillowcase just for that first night that I'm sleeping, because sometimes I'll sweat and a little bit more of that henna residue will come out of my pores on my scalp. So even though the hair doesn't feel gritty the way it used to when I rinse my henna, I still will occasionally get a little bit stuck on my scalp. And I don't think it's actually on the surface of my scalp. I think it's just kind of like down there in the pores and in the follicles, and it has to come out on its own time with a little bit of sweat. I think that's it.
To start my regular henna process, I brew some chamomile tea, 2 tea bags, and a little over 2 cups of water. And then in a glass bowl, I put 1 part henna and 1 part cassia. Then I start adding my tea. And I add a little bit at a time and then begin stirring with a fork. Since this is pure henna and cassia, you don't have to worry about it interacting with metal. And I just keep stirring and adding water until all the clumps are gone, and it looks something like this. Then I cover it up part way with a lid and leave it in a warm place for 6 to 12 hours. Once the dye has released, it will look a little bit orange on the surface. I start by brushing all of the knots out and then stir my henna mixture to make sure that there isn't more dye concentrated on the top. Then, using my dye brush, I henna all along my hairline, starting at the top of my forehead. I work my way all the way down and around my ears and through the nape of my neck. I usually will overlap my hair about 1 inch from my hairline, and I don't really worry too much about the henna building up and getting darker on my hair because it does eventually bleach out in the sun with me living in LA. I didn't have this problem as much in San Francisco, but now that I'm here, I really don't worry very much about overlapping the henna and building it up, which does make it darker over time. Once I've done all of my hairline, including the nape of my neck, I part my hair down the center of my head and down the back. And then, if I'm holding my brush in the right hand, I'll grab the hair on the left side and hold it taut while I brush the henna into place. And this keeps my hair from getting tangled. I'm putting quite a bit of henna on, and again I'm overlapping about 1 inch here as well. And what I'm trying to do is press hard enough with the brush to make sure it's getting in between all of the little hairs, because you can miss chunks of your hair if you're not pressing hard enough and not using enough henna. I usually just gauge it by whether or not I can feel my scalp getting wet from the henna mixture, and it's pretty easy to tell. Once I've hennaed all the way down that part in my hair, I move my part over about 1/2 inch to 1 inch to one side, and then continue the process. Once I've done the entire left side of my head, I look a bit like a mess, and it's time to move on to the right side. I flip all of my hair back to the other side, and then start my new part 1 inch to the right of my original part. I do the right side of my head the exact same way. Then I put my hair up in a messy bun and brush off all of the henna crumbs that ended up all over me and pretty much all over the bathroom and the floor and the hallway. Then I usually grab a spoolie or a Q-tip and begin hennaing my eyebrows if I have any left over. I'm not applying very much pressure, just enough to get it onto the hairs without pressing it into my skin. This process is actually very easy. Then I look like Groucho Marx. Sexy. For my leftover henna, I'll either turn it into a gloss, or I'll plop down a plastic bag in the sink and fold the top over so it stays open, and scoop out all of my leftover henna into that bag, trying to get it into one corner. Then I twist it into a little cone, close it up, then pop it into the freezer for my next henna touch-up. I've heard it will keep in the freezer for several months, but I've never really had it around that long. Then I clean up the mess of henna crumbs that I had in the bathroom and scrub my nails with my nail brush, and keep the henna on my head for as long as possible until I go crazy. After about 2 hours, I rinse it out with plain old water. I don't use shampoo or conditioner for this process anymore because it slides right out of my hair. Then I wipe any excess henna out of my eyebrows and continue my bathing routine as usual. One thing I do always make sure of when I henna my hair is to use a dark towel after I get out of the shower, because drying your hair with a white towel carries the slight risk of staining your towel orange. And that's about it.
So that is how I'm currently hennaing my hair on a regular basis, and like I said, I don't always do the gloss, but when I do, it's usually like once every 6 months, and I don't need it as much as I used to. My hair has definitely gotten a lot healthier, and it seems like it's a lot better off than it used to be. I'm very happy with my routine and don't anticipate changing it anytime soon. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Check out my channel for other fun DIY projects and tutorials, and you can follow me on social media at Katrinaosity.